Well, the programme makers have announced an external review into those allegations and have taken the show off air while they do that. And human rights barrister Baroness Kennedy KC, who featured in the documentary, called for the show to be axed altogether. I know you saw this covered on the news last night.
Yeah,
Janet,
I saw
didn't
part
you?
of the show and I saw it covered on the news. I was aware of the show because it originated, I think, in Australia. I think it is one of the most controversial shows on television because we're kind of used to reality shows pushing the boundaries, and I've taken part in things like I'm a Celebrity. But if we look at this particular show, what I find offensive about it is it denigrates the whole concept of marriage. It pretends, it acts as if they are really married, but it's a drama. They're acting out. It's not legally a marriage, and so it's confusing for the viewers, and it sounds confusing for the contestants.
The viewers kind of know that's the appeal of the show often, is that it's acting out, going, if this was a marriage...
It can lead on to marriage.
And it can lead on to some of them staying together.
Yes, but these people are then living together and sleeping together. Now, the spin-off of this has been that we've seen several high-profile marriages that have been in the press. They've had, huge millions of followers on Instagram and socials and everything, and they're not marriages. They're staged for commercial gain, for TV airtime, for endorsements and so on.
But Married at First Sight has always made it very clear that these are not real marriages. Yeah. They've never pretended
these are legal marriages. I find the whole area quite distasteful, to be honest. And there's another show about losing your virginity that I find even more so. So where is this going to go?
I mean, they do get quite extreme, some of these shows, but they're very, very popular. It's very popular. Let's move it away from Married at First Sight, Kelly, just to talk generally about, you have young children, boy and a girl.
Yes.
Where does the responsibility lie in educating young people about relationships, to try them not to be toxic, to, about sexual violence, about consent, like where... Because it's a big topic, and there are a lot of grey areas sometimes, and so I think it's parental.
So I think societally we need to all take some kind of ownership, definitely. I think social media companies need to take ownership. Obviously, for me, it starts at home. So the conversations that I'm responsible for these children. I had them, they're my responsibility. So my responsibility parentally is essential. What I tell them, what I show them, how I conduct myself, what I allow them to watch, what parental blockers I have on their phones, all of those kinds of things. That's my responsibility. However, when they go to school, it then becomes school's responsibility. And I know
not every child has responsible parents, or parents will find it maybe uncomfortable to talk about these things.
I understand that, but at the end of the day, there are ways that you can improve your skills as a parent. Right? You don't have to sit there and go, I can't do this, I don't know how to do this, hold my hands up. No, actually, if you didn't know how to give birth to a child, you went to the maternity classes before you had the child. So there are ways, like, let's not all go, oh, I don't know how to do it. Find a way. It's your child and you're responsible. Otherwise, you're just going to foster another problem for somebody else to deal with.
But do you think that schools have an important role to play? Because I do.
100%, and that's what I was getting onto. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was getting onto. So when they're at home, they're my responsibility. When they go to school, they're school's responsibility. And I'm really fortunate. My children go to a school whereby they have personal development days, and each one of those days is dedicated to something that might be relevant or relevant in the news, or something that they feel is concerning. And they have had classes on toxic masculinity. They separate the boys and the girls. They both have different conversations that relate to them, as in their genders. And then they talk about that and educate them about how to handle themselves in different situations, and what is considered toxic and what isn't considered toxic. And I think those are the things that are really important, because they're having those conversations with their peers, and then when they go to the playground, they're then considering those conversations and then continuing those conversations.
I think education is everything, Colleen. I think it's really good you've got to educate boys and girls, because there's these words, toxic masculinity, are bandied around so much now.
Yeah,
I almost feel sorry for... I mean, I have a son, that it's almost like every young man is thinking, do all women think I'm toxic?
I do feel sorry for all the really good men and boys and everything who do know the right way to behave. I think it's a shame that now I feel that everyone's getting lumped into this toxic masculinity. Personally, wow, I would hate to be a man right now because, you know, we are more aware of it and, you know, people aren't accepting as much. But I agree with you in the respect of my kids now. You know, I've had these conversations with them. You know, I remember Jake saying he feels terrible if he's walking behind a woman, he feels like he needs to cross the street so she doesn't feel threatened. Or what's worse for him is when she crosses the street, because then he wants to say to her, I'm okay, you know.
But I guess
that's kind of a right thing to do if you're feeling, you know. But also, I think as parents, and certainly as older parents or an older generation like myself, we have to learn. Because it's all very well for me to go, oh, you know, back in the day, you know, we got wolf whistled and we had this and it didn't affect me. And it doesn't matter. Times have changed. Your children are learning and you have to learn with them. And don't say to a young man, oh, don't worry about it.
But do you
should worry about it.
Colleen, do you think watching programmes like this helps or makes the situation worse?
Watching programmes like
Married at First Sight.
Well, you know, it's really
because it cheapens relationships.
I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'd never watch it because I've just watched the whole series of MAFS Australia. Absolutely,
it's hugely popular.
Loved it, and then actually one of the couples in that end up getting properly married. It was beautiful.
And I think as well, you know, obviously there have been some very serious allegations, and we're talking, you know, there's a big difference between toxic masculinity and, you know, rape and sexual assault, obviously. Channel 4 have said that Married at First Sight UK is produced under some of the most comprehensive and robust welfare protocols in the industry. These include background checks, behavioural standards, daily contributor check-ins, specialist welfare team, etc. When concerns related to contributor welfare were raised, prompt and appropriate action was taken. And CPL, the production company who make MAFS UK, have said the lawyer for them said its welfare system was gold standard and industry leading, and that it acted appropriately in all these cases. Obviously, they've said there is an investigation going on and it has been taken off air whilst that is happening. We just want to say, if you have been affected by anything that we've discussed here and that you need help and advice, go to our website, itv.com/helplines for some more support.